Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode I'm calling Introducing Janus-Faced Guerilla Theater, a new political weapon against soft climate denial. So it just occurred to me this last week that some forms of political engagement and direct action with politicians who are engaged in what I call soft climate denial, rather than hard climate denial, need to be approached a little bit differently than those in hard. In other words, so those who are in soft climate denial, in the way that I've co-developed the concept, it's now, it's used on and off by people. I don't, claim authorship for it, but I did write some early pieces about it about 8 or 9 years ago. And so anyway, soft climate denial is when a politician, or even, it's not just about politicians, but in general, it's really a state of mind where one acknowledges that climate change exists, that human-caused climate change exists, but one postpones acting upon it, and one postpones doing anything about it because you think it's not that urgent, or just without any reflection on its urgency or not. Simply, you just compartmentalize your life accordingly. So among politicians, though, you can pretty much, sort them into either the hard climate denial or the soft climate denial categories, and then maybe those who are maybe not in denial. And those are very, very few. But anyway, so maybe three categories, a very, very small category of those who are not, and then the other two categories. And so I was going to be involved in an action that didn't happen this week, where the target was a politician who is largely pro-fossil fuel, but also has done some actions which support renewable energy. And so it's not clear what, it is clear from the point of view of climate action that they are not acting with any urgency, that they are not recognizing that we are in a climate emergency and that we need to stop taking money from the fossil fuel industries, and also that we need to cut them off from any current subsidies, any rulemaking that is positive for their industry in terms of building any new infrastructure, any new wells, any new drilling, so forth and so on, for fossil fuels, and that or new pipelines, new natural gas distribution, new gas stations, any of that, that needs to stop. And so there are people who try to play both sides, and this has been going on for a long time. The Democratic Party is mostly in soft climate denial in this regard. And then there are people who are in hard climate denial, or hard climate denialists, who either minimize that climate change has any importance for human beings, that it's plant food, CO2 is plant food, that the earth will be a lusher and greener place because of our emissions, so forth and so on, and that we will flourish because of the emissions that we are emitting. And it goes from, now it used to be that there was a denial of any change, and now there's denial. Well, there's change, but it's good change. And that's all. You can consider that all hard climate denial. That, in other words, that there's no climate action should happen. Okay, that we shouldn't, that we should continue emitting, we should continue drilling, so forth and so on. And so anyway, political action against those two targets, I think, should be somewhat different. So that, for one, soft climate denial introduces a dodge or a window dressing in politicians, a window dressing, a greenwashing, you could say, of the politician. And some of that greenwashing, unfortunately, is all we have in the way of climate action, or it's the very beginning tendrils of anything like climate action. So in the most positive way. So there are people who would dismiss that entirely as being entirely bunk. Okay, that it's not nearly what the maximalist program, so to speak, that one wants, that one needs, that we need, which we do need a maximalist program to address climate change. Anyway, but we don't have that. And so in terms of government policy and so forth and so on, so political action targeting political figures, I think, needs to be adjusted a little bit according to at least their acknowledgments, what they acknowledge is true, and also what appear to be their intentions, or at least what they're not appear, what they claim are their intentions. Okay. So anyway, so this idea occurred to me that we can either claim that those soft climate denialists are exactly like hard climate denialists, which I think is not a winning strategy for political action, or we can play with their soft climate denial as activists, and we can either make it look ridiculous, make it look any number of different ways. There are lots of choices. So anyway, so the idea, the thought occurred to me that one could, and I'm using Biden as an example, of our currently most powerful politician in the world, and also in the world's energy economy overall. I mean, you could say maybe MBS is, more powerful. Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, but not really. I mean, that because of the U.S. military and the U.S. export of fossil fuels and so forth and so on, and our dependence on fossil fuels, our again, referencing the military, our power, our political power, so forth and so on in the world, are the alliances we have with, among others, MBS, so forth and so on, but or Saudi Arabia. Anyway, that Joe Biden, using him as this example, but this could be applied to any political leader in any country. Okay, and because political leaders all have some, the people who are either the prime ministers or the presidents of various countries have some degrees of freedom to address the climate crisis. And so climate activists need to address those political leaders according to A, their power, and B, their stated intentions, okay, and also stated acknowledgement of what they know, and push them as far as they will go. Okay, and it requires those acknowledgments leave an opening, okay, for, you could say, a political space, a psychological space, okay, for discussion, a group psychological space for discussion, but also projected onto these leaders, because these leaders are individuals and they have, or they consult with other people, so they're not soloists in their leadership. But anyway, but ultimately they are responsible for the actions of their regimes, governments, what have you. So anyway, so the idea that I had was to create guerrilla theater. Now, guerrilla theater sounds very complicated, but it can be very simple. So guerrilla theater it doesn't have to be theater even. It can be just signs and a different way of creating banners, okay, or even chants, okay, which are lightweight ways of doing things. But I'm going to start with the guerrilla theater idea, and not even a complicated guerrilla theater, one that is within the capacity of any 10, 12, 15 person group of protesters or group of climate activists. So, and this is to create a sham battle, okay, or conflict or dialogue between good Biden, I'm using Biden as an example, and bad Biden, or fossil Biden and renewable Biden. So, and this is now there are many, many ways to write a script on how to do that. And also the script needs to change based on the political conjuncture, okay, the moment, okay? One needs to be attuned to what the moment is, because you want your message to go to the public, to the people who are watching, to the media who can broadcast your message, and to the politicians who might feel a twinge of shame or of conscience if they're recognized enough in the action that you're doing. So I realize this is not very satisfying for people who want to see a revolution right now, and they don't want to, and they want to create a cartoonish villain to decry and shame. And that is one way to do it. And that there are situations where there are cartoonish villains in this. There are groups like, for instance, the Atlas Network, or Donald Trump, for instance, is he acts the cartoonish villain. And actually, this Janus-Faced guerrilla theater can be modified to address those and to mock those cartoonish villains. So now, in certain views, Joe Biden can be viewed as a cartoonish villain if you look at the way he's allowed so many permits of fossil fuel projects, how he's courted and treated Joe Manchin so respectfully. But I mean, he's in line in a way with the Democratic Party establishment. In a way, you don't know the degree to which he is the author of his own actions versus this sort of the executor of actions, that where he's sort of kind of this committee, this person who's sort of part of this committee of the Democratic Party. And that's one theory of the cipher that is Joe Biden. But anyway, if we create a cartoonish villain out of him in our actions, we can alienate potential allies, and also not project a clear enough vision of the current political situation. So anyway, so this Janus-Faced guerrilla theater is as follows. So you have people to represent good fossil Biden versus renewable Biden, or you could say, in Germany, fossil Olaf Scholz and renewable Olaf Scholz. Or the Italian government, it's a little bit harder because Meloni, you could say fossil. I don't know if you can find a renewable Meloni or not. I don't know enough about the energy politics of the current Italian government. But you could do, fossil Macron and renewable Macron. Now in Britain, it's pretty clear, but still, you can say Sunak. There's a fossil Sunak, much bigger and stronger than the renewable Sunak, Rishi Sunak, the current prime minister. Okay, and so anyway, but with this tactic is more clear with a government where there's been some acknowledgement, like the Scholz government in Germany, like the U.S. government, like Trudeau in Canada, where they're kind of, from the point of view of climate activists, they are entirely dominated by fossil interests, or largely dominated by fossil interests. But there's still this thin layer, these tendrils of something like a climate policy that are much celebrated. So anyway, I am proposing that climate activists create theaters where you have these, for instance, fossil Biden has devil horns, okay, maybe wears aviator sunglasses. So I know the icons of Biden better than some of these other leaders. So, aviator sunglasses and then the horns to signify that he is fossil Biden, maybe also wearing black, who knows. And then you have renewable Biden, who is wearing a halo, okay, and sorry for the Christian iconography, but anyway, that's you can do whatever you want in theater, okay, draw from what people recognize as the sort of dominant cultural iconography, but anyway, and then obviously renewable Biden is either wears white or green or something like that, or but then you have. So you can do any number of different things. You could have these two figures. You could have a third character in your guerrilla theater who's the voter. You could have a narrator that narrates the struggle between the two Bidens. So it depends on and the script, though, comes from recent politics, okay, in terms of and policy of that government or of that person, acts, votes, so forth and so on. So you narrate it, and it can become a vehicle for political education, among other things. It can become a vehicle for humor, okay, if you get that, if you're able to work that in. Don't get too involved in making it too complicated, because it's of the moment. It needs to be of that moment. But I think that if you develop a set of tools in your group, so this is something I'm trying to inspire people to do, or inspire activists to come up and generate this kind of theater, or at least these concepts. So the concept is we're trying to create a drama that shows people the reality, and also and so we can also address and try to engage the politicians, because we're trying to get them to act. This is not an electoral campaign that we're trying to get people who've already landed in office or already have positions of power, and or they could be even a corporate. It could be even be a corporate leader who does some greenwashing, but then does mostly dirty stuff. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily. But anyway, but we're trying to get people who are, and also to illustrate to the public what their choices have led to in terms of that person being now in office or being in power in some way or another. And we can make them look like a tragic figure, that they're torn by these two. It could be that way. You could make them look ridiculous. You could make them look through this dramatic process. And so I think it helps to really to have the narrator as one person who could be the person who draws out the message and says, like, we don't want fossil Biden to keep on beating up. So one of the more funny ways to do this is to have them do basically a Punch and Judy show, okay, where they are batting each other with, you could say, large balloon, long balloons or something. One is green and, whatever. One is black for fossil fuels. And when they hit each other, they can say, like, here's my something policy and here's what I did this act. And so you make it, it's not just a total, a total satire. I mean, well, it is a satire, but it's not a total lampoon and a distortion of reality, in the sense of you get these figures to do this in a way that's dramatic and funny and so forth and so on, and at the same time people go, wow, or could go, wow, this is going on, and this is the same politician but doing these different things, and so you could also make it about the hiding of fossil Biden by, renewable Biden is hiding fossil Biden. So you could do it that way. So you could expose the chicanery of soft climate denial in a politician, of so you could dramatize the ways politicians escape accountability by saying nice things. So that could be another way to do what I'm calling Janus-Faced guerrilla theater. And so you could also just develop a series of banners that, you wouldn't necessarily have actors doing these things, but banners that are sort of a slideshow of banners that narrate the dilemma, so to speak, of what's going on, or the dilemma is the wrong word, but the conflict, okay, the conflict between, you could say, good and evil, that's going on, and really good is, in this case, is protection of the public, okay, protection of the public against an obvious danger. So, and that is, or when we're talking about a political actor, protection of the public, are you going to protect us? So it's, and it's something that can draw people in. In other words, that you're trying to make this an organizing tool. So you want to make it educational, an organizing tool, a way to inspire people to join in and you could have multiple roles of people who act as various kinds of voters, and they can, have fossil Biden and renewable Biden tugging on them, and saying, whatever, you come with us, or no, you come with me, no, I got you, you're, you want to be, you want to drive your pickup with the lowest possible cost, come with me, I'm fossil Biden, it's like, or anyway, I want you to I want to beat Russia in Europe as, whatever, as the major supplier of natural gas. So, you can have all kinds of characters based on the political conjuncture that you're in. And this guerrilla theater can be used that way too. And you want to make it, there's a morality tale in it, that's clearly, but you want to make it as rich and as realistic a morality tale as possible. And you want to make it, and to bring your message over to say, look, our cause is just, and we need to activate, and we need to get politicians to do the right thing, and we also need to do what they say. So another again, as I mentioned earlier, they're using their renewable selves to hide their fossil selves. You could do a whole, if you like internal monologues, the whole thing can be an internal monologue where, renewable Biden and fossil Biden are just dancers, essentially, while the narrator is talking about this, and so that needs to be a little more thought through and rehearsed and so forth and so on. But anyway, this can be very simple. It can be just done as, will the real Joe Biden stand up? You could do it a game show. There was an old game show where, you had people who, were imposters, and you had someone who was the real person. So you could do that format as well. So I am just opening this up as a way to address specifically the very real and very chimerical political opponent of soft climate denial, and politicians who are encouraging of and who trade in soft climate denial, who spur it on, who sustain it, and who don't act with the urgency that we need, who don't act with the emergency, declaring a climate emergency, acting with that urgency that's needed to disseminate the information to the public that why they're doing that. And so anyway, I'm just putting this out there. I look forward to hearing any of your thoughts on, whether you find this inspiring, interesting, something you want to collaborate on. I'm definitely open to collaboration and just to talking about, how, to throwing out ideas about how to do this kind of political action, whether it makes sense to you, whether you think it would be effective, whether it inspires you, whether it gets your creativity thinking, your political creativity, and all those things. So anyway, just a few thoughts on that. Probably will return to this in a future episode. But please share your thoughts in the comments, and also please subscribe to Politics 2100. Please like this video if you got something out of it, and please subscribe to Politics 2100. I think I said that already. In any case, to get more notification of future videos. So see you then.